Hi there, this is Linda and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be setting up my 2027 Aura Estelle craft planner. Let's go ahead and dive right in. Okay, you guys, I am so excited today to start setting up my 2027 lineup with the A5 Magnet Weekly Horizontal from Aura Estelle. Aura Estelle was nice enough to gift me this gorgeous planner, and they also gifted me some fun stickers here and a beautiful planner cover, which I think I'm honestly going to put on my daily journal. So today though, we're going to be focusing on this book and setting this up to be my 2027 craft planner. In this video, I'm going to be putting some timestamps so you can skip ahead to specific points of the video if you're only interested in specific parts. Right now, I'm going to share a brief overview of what is included in this journal before I start setting it up. And then I'm going to talk about how I want to actually set this book up. And then I'm going to actually start setting it up. So this is an A5 Weekly Horizontal 2027 Magnet Planner from Aura Estelle. It's made in Japan. It's got this beautiful kind of leather cover. I'm not sure if this is real leather or not. My guess is it's vegan leather, but I don't know. And it's got beautiful Tomoe River paper with a nice, gorgeous grid in here. So let's flip through what the layout is for this book. So Aura Estelle does their intro pages a little bit differently from Hobonichi and a lot of the other brands that are copying Hobonichi. So we have a monthly calendar of just 2027, which I love. I'm not sure why some of the other books put like the previous year and the next year. I don't need that. Then they have this yearly overview, which is very different from the calendex that you see in other books. Honestly, this is kind of similar to what you see in the Hobonichi weeks, but these are a little bit bigger. And I'm thinking this might be a good place for me to see a broad overview of all the videos that I want to share throughout the year. There's a yearly goals page where they have a place for you to write down goals. I do like setting craft goals for the year, but I'm not ready to set those up yet for 2027. And I'm not sure if I'm gonna use this layout for that. Actually, let me grab my 2026 craft goals. So in 2026, these are the craft goals that I set and kind of how I set them up. And you can see I have kind of fallen off on keeping up with this tracker. So maybe I won't do an annual craft goals this year. I'm not sure yet, but I'm probably going to do something on this spread. So definitely stay tuned for that in a future video. Then we move into the actual planner. So something that Aura Estelle does that I really love is that they don't have all of the monthlies up front. Instead, they have monthlies and weeklies kind of lumped together by the month. So I'm actually going to put some tabs on here. And I have these tabs from the Coffee Monster Co. And they are in 2026 colors, but I don't care. I have never used them and I would like to. So I'm going to just tab off each month. Now, Aura Estelle does have these like gray shaded, so if you didn't want to add tabs, you could definitely use that as a reference, but I'm going to add the tabs to this because I think that will be a fun thing to have. So just comparing to my 2026 planner, I use my monthlies to track what I have shared on Instagram and YouTube as the month goes by. What I hated in 2026 was that these were blank. So I had to set these up at the beginning of the month by adding all of these stickers on here. And in 2027, I'm super looking forward to not having to do that and just have this be a functional page that I can use during the month itself to plan out what I'm doing and sharing, or what I've shared over on my channels. Because of that, I'm not really going to need to do much setup here. I'm not sure if I'm going to put anything over here in this side column. I probably will put some washi across the bottom just for fun. Then we have this tracker here. Now in this planner, we had something like that, like this, and it was meant to be a habit tracker. This one is a little different. First of all, I like how bold this color, the printing is on here. You can see the difference. This one is so faded versus this one. And this does have the grid continued at the bottom, which gives you some extra writing space, but it's just very kind of bold. And I'm thinking what I'm going to use this for is listing out all of the videos that I want to make that month to share, and then kind of when I need to have them filmed and edited, and using this calendar for that as like a tracker. Then you get a blank spread. And this is where I'm going to do my monthly tracking. So in my craft planner for the past few years, here's just like May, I have done a projects and a product tracker for each month. And I think I'm going to put that right here with my monthly spread. I will obviously set this up as part of my monthly plan with me. And this is where I set my craft goals and track all of my products for the month. So I'm super excited to have that like with my monthly calendar. Then we go into the weekly spreads. So these are going to be for my task list and kind of like what I want to edit. I'm not sure I'm really going to use the dates because in 2026, so I had this and it was just blank because this isn't undated. And what I used it for was just like a tracking list of what needed to be done this week. And I might just cross off the dates and then use this as a tracker. And I still love that it's this horizontal block that I have these like things here where I have, there's 7 because there's 7 days, but really that's like 7 projects is more than I can do in a week. So I should never plan more than that. And then this side I use for notes, for like editing notes as I'm editing my videos. And so we have all of the January spreads, and then we get into February. And then once we get through all of the months through December, then we get to blank grid pages. And we have, I think there's like 100. I really don't know how many pages there are back here. They're not numbered, which I don't love. I would like if they were numbered, but it does lay flat pretty well, so I'm pretty happy about that. I think this one kind of did too, but still that's like an important piece to me, is that it can lay flat, and this paper is so dreamy feeling. Honestly, it's way dreamier than this paper, even though this is Tomoe River paper. And these are smaller grid, which I like. I think these are more like the Hobonichi size. This is a slightly bigger grid. And then I'm going to use this for all of my other, so I sketch out projects in here. I keep track of stories, but I'm going to actually set up some spreads in here that I have in previous years. So I need like a reference page, a page for ideas. I do my Instagram and YouTube growth tracking. I track my project life. I keep track of all of my vlogs and travel vlogs. And then I have all of these older planned projects that I have migrated from previous places into here. And my hope was to do a lot of these projects so I don't have to migrate them again. But I do think I'm going to plan on migrating all of the ones I haven't done again into 2027 as a way to motivate me to get more of these done. So I do have a decent amount in here that I need to finish. And then I have all of like my storyteller planning in here for 2026. Obviously, I can't share all of those on the internet because those are paid content, but I will go ahead and add new ones in here that I do in 2027. I've used this for sketching out how I wanted to lay out stuff in my craft room, planning out projects as I worked on them. So I will do all of that in here in 2027, but I do need to set up those initial trackers today in this video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you guys on music and voiceover, and I'm going to decorate my cover and add my tabs and then create those initial spreads that I definitely am going to want as I move into here. And I will not really work on migrating projects into sketch projects in here yet, because it is currently, actually it's July when I'm starting to film this, but it will be August when you guys see this video. And I still have a quarter of 2026 left to get some of those projects put together, which I'm actually going to try to work on some later today so that I have less to migrate. And that is such a like motivating factor for me to not have to migrate so much. So without anything else to say, let's go ahead and start getting this one put together. So I'm starting with my cover, and this is one of my favorite parts of any new journal setup is decorating the cover. I brought over my sticker organization uh, box that holds stickers related to crafting and journaling and such to pick ones out. I have a separate video sharing how I organized these, and I will link that in the description box below. But I pulled out quite a few to choose from that I thought I might want to put on here. Because this is my craft planner, I wanted to use crafting related stickers. So I'm just pulling out a ton, and this is way more than I wanted to use. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to arrange them out all on my cover and get a feel for what I actually want on this journal. What I end up going with is just one row of some Coffee Monster Co. stickers, but you'll see me try a few different things. A lot of my stickers are from the Coffee Monster Co. I do have quite a few also from Cocoa Daisy. I have some from Brandy Kincaid. I have some from various just like online sources. Sometimes I get them on Amazon. I've gotten some that are just from like little shops that I go to, and I just pick them up. So if you have a question about a specific sticker or any of my stickers that I'm using, then just let me know. But the ones I do end up going with are from the Coffee Monster Co. And I decide to put them in a row along the side just like that. So I'm going to go ahead and stick those down. The next thing I'm going to do is add some dated tabs to the book. I'm going to just go ahead and add some that were from the Coffee Monster Co. that I had left over from a previous release to label the different month dividers. And I like that in this planner, the weekly spreads are kind of combined with the monthly spreads. So I can just flip to the monthly tab for the correct month, and I'll be able to easily get to the spread that I need. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up putting the tabs on, and then I need to work on setting up what I'm going to include in those extra pages. So after the end of December, what I'm doing here is just like finding where those extra pages are. And I put the little tab for a pencil, and that's kind of like for the notes pages in the back, right? And so what I'm going to do is start deciding what is going to go where. And I'm going to pull over my sticky notes. And by sticky notes, I mean, these are called slicky notes. And my friend Sarah introduced these to me, and they are basically sticky notes that have no adhesive on them. Instead, they're staticky, so they stick to the page without leaving any sort of residue, and you can reuse them. It is great. Sometimes when you flip the pages, they don't stick as well as a sticky note because it might static to the other side, but I use them when wanting to like cover photos up on projects, when I'm crafting and stuff, because then you don't get any sticky residue. And I'll link them in the description box below. But essentially what I'm doing is just figuring out what spreads I want in my book here. and just making notes of what spreads those are going to be, because that way I have just a base idea of everything that I want to include and the order I want to include it and how I want everything to be laid out on my pages. And I'm just going through and figuring those out. I will switch it up as I start getting them set up, but I'm just doing this to have a basic idea of what I want and where I want it. And you can see I'm kind of like rearranging things as I go, but I'll go through what all of these things are in a moment as I start setting them up. Okay, so before I do the actual setup, I flip to the very back and I'm just doing a pen test page because I am new to using Aura Estelle. And I do this honestly with every book I get, even ones that I've used in the past, because not every book is going to be the same, especially year to year with the same manufacturer, unfortunately. So I always want to test it out. So you can see here, I'm testing out all of my pens and markers, and I'm going to test stamps and everything. And at the very end of the pen test, I will flip the page so you can see the back. But honestly, this one was great. I feel like this paper performed amazingly with all of the pens that I want to use. I use a mix of gel pens, fountain pens, markers. I have paint pens. I have all of the things. So I am really, really happy with how this paper held up to all of the different pens and markers. So definitely stay tuned to see how this comes together. I also wanted to jump in and say that you might have noticed I have some new music. I have been wanting for a while to switch up my music that I use, and I got a comment about it, and that was just the push I needed to go grab a few more royalty-free musics from YouTube. For those of you who don't make YouTube videos, it is kind of frustrating that the music selection that's out there royalty free. I'm obviously not going to pay royalties to use music. I mean, if that wasn't a thing, obviously I'd be having, you guys would be listening to Taylor Swift over my videos here, but I'm not paying for those. I don't even think she does license it for YouTube. But anyways, so I do have a limited selection, but hopefully mixing it up a little bit will make it a little bit more fun. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up this pen test, and then I'll pop back on with some more voiceover as I get started on the next part of my setup. So the first page I'm going to make is what I title references. And this is a page that pencil tab will flip directly to. I'm going to use this stamp set to do a lot of my titles in this book. I use this in my 2026 setup as well. I think I didn't use it in my craft planner setup, but I think maybe in my Taken Out. I absolutely love this stamp set. It is from the Coffee Monster Co. I get questions about it all the time. She only releases stamps periodically, but she does do re-releases of this stamp. So if it is one you want to pick up, definitely follow the Coffee Monster Co. to see when it will come out. I'm using black StazOn ink to stamp in here. And my pen test, I tested this ink and it works really well. I have one that is a little bit of a drier ink, and I don't get super dark stamps on here because I don't want it to bleed. I think that Stays On ink will bleed if it is super juicy, because this is a like permanent ink and probably not the best one for Tomoe River paper, but it is really just my go-to stamp or ink that I use for pretty much everything. For this now, I'm adding this washi border. This is from Everyday Explorers. I get their journaling subscription, and it comes with some washi kind of samplers. And this one was like my absolute favorite. I actually was able to pick up a roll of this washi tape because I love it so much at Stationery Fest. So I was super excited about that. But it has like the little clampies, and I thought it was so cute. So I use that to kind of create a border across the top along my title. And then this page, I'm going to just write down all of the like references that I need throughout the year. So I'm copying over a few from my previous planner. So these are just like dimensions for things for YouTube or keyboard shortcuts that I use, stamp sets that I use for certain things. And then at the bottom, I'm going to create 2 boxes to keep track of my colors for my product tracking. And then I also am going to create a key for project naming that I'm not going to fill out today. But essentially what these are for, the product tracking is for my monthly trackers. If you've watched my monthly plan with me, you know how I set those up. If you haven't seen those videos, you can check those out. I'll link that in the description box below. My playlist of my monthly plan with me's. But essentially what I do is I track all of my products that come in and go out from my craft room. And I have a key for different colors that mean different things, such as 4x6 cards versus 3x4 cards versus vellum. And so that way I can tell kind of what I'm using and what I'm bringing into the house by using this color-coded key. So that's what I'm creating here. And then project naming, that's just to name my files on my computer, because I'm constantly forgetting how I formulate my project names, and I want them to all kind of organize in order in my folders. So like all of my project life spreads, I will use like the same naming convention. So that's just a silly little shortcut for myself. But essentially that's what this page is for. Anytime I want to come up with something new that I might need, I'm going to just write it on this page. Like for example, if I need to do print a monthly photo for my daily journal to do like a monthly selfie, I'm going to write on here what the dimensions are so that I can remember that in the future when I have to do more spreads. As I wrap up the references page, I just want to give a few comments for some of the products I'm using here. So I'm using the Uniball 1 0.38 pen, which is my favorite go-to gel pen these days for most of my writing. I used a mild liner for the highlighting, and then I used the Tombow Twin Tone markers for my tracking for all the different color coding. I love those markers because they have like a regular bullet point, but they also have like a thin pen tip, which is essentially the thickness of a pen. And so I use those for things like that tracking where I can do like tally marks and stuff, but they're going to be bright colors. And I love those. You saw them also in the drawer that was pulled out from my Sysmac drawers, which is where I store most of my markers and pens on my desk. And I can link all of those in the description box below. For the Sysmac drawers, though, they are more expensive on Amazon, and I think they actually have been rebranded potentially, but I'll link the ones that they have now. I was able to find them much cheaper in person at, I think it was Marshall's, but you know, it's always hit or miss if you can find something like that there. I did purchase one on Amazon for more money, and then I found a second set for cheaper. Now I'm turning to my Project Life tracker, and this is something I've done for the past few years, and I absolutely love it. But essentially what this is, it's going to track all of my Project Life spreads. And I have 2 pages of it, one for each volume, because for my Project Life album, I do 2 albums per year. And these are 9x12 albums. And the first one is January through June. The second is July through December, though I end up stamping June through December on here, but that's okay. I know what I mean. Maybe I'll go back and fix that. But I'm just adding the stamp from Everyday Explorers to add the dates on it. And then I'm going to create a tracker here. And essentially what this is going to track is the spread number. So I know how many how many weeks I've done. I don't call them weeks anymore because I have gotten a lot of like pushback on that, because people do Project Life weekly, are like, some people are super strict with following the actual calendar weeks, and I am not. So I call them spread numbers. And then I put what dates that spread covers, what kit I'm going to use, and then I keep track of the design of the page protector, because whatever you have in one spread, you have to have and the next spread is like the back of it, right? So hopefully that all makes sense. And then I keep track of when I'm done with it, if I have it planned out and that type of stuff. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, because you're totally new to Project Life, I will link in the description box below my Project Life playlist. I have an Intro to Project Life series with an introduction and then some tips and tricks to get you started. And then I have process videos for my Project Life spreads for the past maybe like 3 years, maybe 4. And I also have flip throughs of a lot of my previous Project Life albums. This is a project that I have been doing now since 2013, and I love it so much. It is an amazing documenting project. If you are not really a scrapbooker, but you are interested in getting into more scrapbooking, this is definitely the project I would recommend, because it's not super scrapbooky, because it does have divided page protectors. It's super easy, and it definitely it's just a super fun way to document your life. So you can see here I'm making these columns for the various weeks kits, and then the left side and right side page protectors, and just where I am in the process in terms of planning, printing photos, or if it is done. I am not going to fill out these trackers yet. I will fill them out as the year goes, but closer to January, I will probably plan out maybe the first couple months in terms of at least the weekly spreads. I tend to do my spreads Monday through Sunday, and then I will adjust my week if there is travel or something like that. And I do travel pretty regularly, so that definitely impacts how my spreads will go. But that's pretty much all I need to do for this spread so far. And then I will flip the page in a few and move on to the next one. So this is where having the sticky notes comes in handy because I'm skipping around and not putting spreads. I'm not creating spreads in order. So I actually skipped a spread. And what I'm working on now is a new to my planner 2027 spread, which is my stories. So you can see on the right hand of the screen, you can see my 2026 planner. I started to create a spread like this, not in the beginning of the year setup, but just kind of as the year started. And I really loved it and it was really helpful, but I just did it for the first quarter, or I guess 4 months of the year. So that would be a third, not the quarter, but for the first 4 months of the year. And I wanted to do something similar this year. I'm going to do the entire year up front with 4 months per page. So I'm going to end up doing 8 months on this spread, and then the last 4 months will be on the next spread. I was going through my washi samplers from Everyday Explorers, and none of them really fit. So I ended up picking one from the Coffee Monster Co. It's like a fountain pen one that I thought went really well with like stories, because it has, you can see I skipped that page, and yeah, I'm rearranging my sticky notes to fit what I actually want for each spread. But anyway, so here I am doing the stories, and I do end up picking this washi tape from the Coffee Monster Co. because it's got like text in the background and I thought it looked really cool for writing. So you'll see how I'm going to do that. But essentially for every spread, you'll see I'm doing the same kind of treatment across the top where I stamp out the title and then I create a strip with washi, except for I guess the Project Life one, because there wasn't really space for washi with all of the titles and like the dates and stuff that I needed to put on there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to split these spreads into 4 kind of boxes, and then I'm going to stamp the months at the top of them. And my plan for this spread is to just write down stories that I want to tell in my story album as they happen, because I end up planning out projects for my story album with my storyteller kits, or maybe using Cocoa Daisy kits. Sometimes I plan them in advance, other times I don't, and I just go back and make them. But what essentially happens is I get to a place where I'm like, I want to plan a story or make a story, make a page, and I'm not necessarily sure like what stories I have left to document. So my plan with this spread is to just keep track of stories as they happen. And that way, when I'm ready to kind of make a page, I can say, okay, I want to make a page for January. What are my missing stories? And use this as a jumping off point for that. So that's what that spread is going to be about. Then I flipped back to the previous page, and this is going to be my social media growth tracker. So I try not to pay too much attention to growth on Instagram and YouTube, but it's hard to ignore. And, you know, as a content creator, I'm primarily doing this for fun and to connect and inspire others and get ideas. Like, I just love the craft community, but it is also a hobby that supports my hobby. So I do have a full-time job. I am not a full-time content creator. I will most likely never be a full-time content creator, but I do get some income from my Instagram and my YouTube and affiliate links and things that does help support this hobby and make it worth the time and effort that goes into editing. Because although I love sharing my content, editing it is not always fun and it is very time consuming. So it does make it worthwhile for me that I can get some money out of it that I can use to then buy my craft supplies. So anyways, I do want to keep track of that growth because it is important to see kind of what I'm doing, if it's working, if it's not working, if I need to adjust my editing, if I need to adjust all those things, right? So what I do is I just created a tracker that shows kind of my growth for each month. And here you'll see me kind of sketching it out. I skip around a bit, you can tell, as I'm working through my planner here, my planner setup. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create like boxes that say for each month, and I'm just going to track the growth from on the first of the month. And I essentially do this every single month. I track my growth. I've done this for the past few years. So I am actually at the bottom going to keep track of my growth in each year of my Instagram and my YouTube channel. And I've kept track of this since 2023 when I really started monetizing my channel. So it's nice to have these numbers and see that I am still consistently growing and know that, when I need to make adjustments, I can see based on, the stall of growth. So I really don't know a ton about it, but I do know that these metrics are important to pay attention to, at least so you get an idea of what is working versus what's not working, because what I like might not necessarily resonate with my viewers. So yes, I'm putting trackers here. I'm just creating a little graph. So it's going to be kind of like a bar graph at the end. And that way I will just keep track of my growth on that bar graph and check in with it once per month. Okay, so for here, I'm just doing some measurements to set up those trackers for stories for each month. And then I'm going to pull over my stamp organization binder because I wanted to pick some stamps out for the names of the months. And so you'll see that in a few. If you are new to my channel and not familiar with my stamp organization, I have a catalog system that I use to organize all of my stamps. So if I need a stamp like this, where I say, oh, I need a stamp for the months, I can just go here and look at my catalog system and see all of the stamps I have that reference months in one spread or a couple of spreads here because I have so many stamps. And that way I'm able to kind of see where I should pick from rather than having to dig through all of my stamps every single time to pick out the stamp that I need. Okay, so I'm only going to set up a couple more spreads, and I'm just going to do these ones using my Tombow Fudenosuke marker, my soft tip, to make quick titles because these are less frequently used spreads and more like reference lists. So this one is just a projects to share, and this is where I'm just going to keep track of scrapbook pages that I have made but not yet shared on Instagram, because sometimes I lag sharing them and then I'll forget what I have and have not shared. So that way I just have an ongoing list. And this is just something I've done in the past on like sticky notes and stuff. So having a defined list for it is going to be super helpful. The next spread is going to detail my vlogs and my travel vlogs. And this is just a reference list because I sometimes forget which ones I've done or what is in which one. If you have not watched these videos for me, these are two separate series that I have on my channel. So the first series are my vlogs, and they're Crafty Girl vlogs, I believe is what I've called them, or Creative Living Crafty Girl vlogs. And I have a whole playlist of those. And essentially it's just vlogs of my life as a creator and all of the things that I do in terms of in my journals or just different things that I do in life. And I have shared a lot of those. And I like to keep a list of kind of what is in them, because sometimes I'll get questions like, oh, have you shared, how you make your scone recipe or how you print photos for your journal? And I will have to reference the vlog that it is in. And this way I have that list. The travel vlogs are like I call them travel and document with me. And essentially it is a travel vlog of various locations along with my journal with me when I journal on the road. So if that's something you're interested in, you might want to check out either of those playlists. In my journal here, I'm going to just make a list of my travel vlogs and what date I shared them in the destination. And then of my regular vlogs, you can see I have a whole list written out in my 2026 journal, but I don't want to copy this over. And this is going to be an ongoing list forever that I just keep adding to. So I'm thinking that I'm going to type this up and print it out and stick it in here. So I will do that at a later date. So that's going to wrap up my setup of my craft planner for now. I will definitely come back and add more right before the new year, but here's a flip through of how this kind of came together. Thank you guys so much for being here. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. And as always, I hope to see you guys all in the next one. Bye.